guys, today we're going to look at something called exposure compensation. Now if you're unsure about what the word exposure means, you need to go back and look at the understanding exposure video first. Now we had some snow last night, so it's given us a good opportunity to look at why we need exposure compensation, what exposure compensation actually is, and how we go about selecting the correct exposure on our cameras. So why do we need exposure compensation? In this little scene here, we have the football and we have the snow, both of which exhibit lots of light tones. Now the camera looks at all this light tone and underexposes the image, which creates this dull grey outcome. You see, the camera is unaware that we're photographing snow. It just reads the scene as being too bright. So we need to fix this by using our exposure compensation. So what is exposure compensation? Well, it's a feature on your camera that allows you to adjust what the camera thinks is the correct exposure by either adding more exposure or by reducing the exposure. First you need to locate the exposure compensation button, which is a plus stroke minus icon. After pressing this, we need to rotate our jog wheel clockwise. Because we want to make the image brighter, we need to add more exposure. In this case, I'm going to add a full 2 stops. If it's too bright, I can always dial it back. Now at the same time, I'm also going to adjust the white balance because the previous image had a slightly blue tint. This is because the camera had selected the automatic white balance setting, and this is not the correct setting for our image. So we've got an overcast day, there's lots of clouds in the sky. We're going to set the white balance to cloudy. Now if I was shooting in RAW, this step wouldn't be needed because I could adjust this later on in post. So now we have the white balance and the exposure compensation set. The last thing to do is take the image again. Perfect. Now we've achieved a much better exposure. The snow and the football exhibit a nice crisp white tone without any of that blue tint. So that's exposure compensation. Now depending on what your subject is and what you're photographing, you might find yourself dialing in less than plus 2 stops. So the next time you're using your camera, have a look at the exposure compensation. Experiment and enjoy.